So, Shocker is a very interesting champion. His release wasn't that well done, in my opinion, because he got nerfed before release, right before release. And then after that, he was just pretty underwhelming for a while, but then he got buffed. And that buff really just did a ton for this champion. And now, as a 7-star character, this guy's probably the best pull in the Gifted Guardian's Crystal. So let's talk about him for a second. What does Shocker do? Well, he has access to shock immunity, paralysis removal, stun, unblockable, massive heavy attacks, no crits, stun reduction immunity, as well as stun duration reduction. So it is a lot of stuff, right? But it's not all really too general, and I feel like he does have a niche with just countering mutant champions and having some other quirky utility bits. But honestly, this man is just a powerhouse when it comes to just dealing damage. But honestly, his brightest spot is his simplicity, because I think some champions, their biggest downfall is the rotations, right? Because sometimes the rotation just doesn't really loop well with a node or something. But with Shocker here, his rotation is so easy, right? And that lets him take a lot of different fights with pretty much absolute ease. Now, what does Shocker gain and lose as a 7-star? Well, he loses the signature ability, for most players at least, where he gets a no-cost SP1 once per fight, and additionally, he gets more charges against prowess characters. So both of those things are pretty dang good, so losing them does hurt for sure, especially that no-cost SP1, which makes him an insanely fast Battlegrounds attacker. But also, the 7-star has some extra bonuses too. It gets the crit rate stat focus, which is good because his armor penetration is linked to his crit rate, so getting more crit rate is really helpful there. Additionally, he gets access to the maximum challenger rating, so his stats won't get gimped that much at all. And then last but not least, he starts with the maximum combat power rate, which compared to rank 3 or rank 4 Shockers, as 6-star versions, you have a pretty nice advantage there as well. So it has its pros and cons for sure, but now let's see some gameplay of 7-star Shocker. But first off, let's start with the boss fight. Now this boss fight is Mr. Sinister, and Mr. Sinister is one of Shocker's best matchups, I feel like, because he just doesn't crit at all, so there's no regen ever, and yeah, he just shreds through him very easily. So this boss has unblockable, it has regen, which honestly isn't too important. But in this fight, let's test out the maximum heavy attack damage for Shocker here. And by the way, his heavy attack scales with class advantage, so this is the actual maximum damage output for him. Now to get to it, it's not that bad of a ramp up. You want to do a SP3, and then after that you want to do a bunch of SP1s up to 150 charges, then drop your SP2, and then yeah, just drop that heavy attack and do a ton of damage with it. It is so fun. Honestly, Shocker's best thing is how fun he is to play. And it's great because he's also super simple as well. Now, some champions are really fun to play, right? But their biggest weakness is that they are fun but stressful to pull off. Shocker here is basically as simple as it gets. You hit the opponent, drop your special attacks, drop the heavy attack, and then the fight is over just like that. And I love champions like this, man. I love the simple characters. Star-Lord, I think, is great because he is super simple to play, and he is just a damage dealer. Shocker right here is kind of like that, but better because Shocker has, very good utility as well. So yeah, these type of champions I really do love for sure, but now it's time for the SP2. Let's drop it real quick, get some nice damage there, a nice 10k non-crit, but here is the real damage output. We're going to charge up, which is very fun to do, by the way. I think it is one of his best things. But then check out that damage output, man. 489,000 heavy attack, just like that. So that was a great start. Now let's see some path fights for Shocker. And in this video, there won't be any Battlegrounds gameplay, unfortunately, because I don't have the access to it. No one does. But yeah, I can't wait to test him. Actually, no, I can't, because he is pretty much worthless all next meta, because first it is polka dot power and power shield, right? And you just can't use him there at all because he doesn't get power. And then he has safeguard after that, which he can't do either because, damage caps really mess him up. So yeah, Shocker, I think, is the best pull from the crystal, but Yeah, he won't be used for a pretty good amount of time, unfortunately. But last Battlegrounds meta, he was doing so good. I didn't have like a maxed out Shocker. I had a rank 4 Shocker, and he was still taking like 7-star rank 2 champions very well. So a 7-star Shocker should do a ton of work in the future seasons, just not next season, right? Because yeah, the meta looks pretty dang painful. But Shocker right here is doing pretty good. The Energize is just being super clutch, and here I just full send it. I drop a combo into the Relic, and then I go back in afterwards, drop the SP2, and now it's time for the massive heavy attack. Now this should do it for sure. Sauron just doesn't stand a chance, and that Relic combo is honestly really fun to do as well, and it's also pretty clutch, right? Because let's say the opponent's not throwing special attacks for some reason, you can just go back in, drop your Relic, and then drop another combo into the SP2, and it's just like a massive stun chain essentially. So yeah, it's a really fun time. But now we have this Karnak fight, no big deal. This is just pretty simple. Here I drop the heavy attack to get the protection down. And honestly, you can play Shocker in a rotation where like you just spam heavy attacks every so often, but it really isn't that fun. I just like the massive heavy attack because it is a prettier picture, and it's just, I think, more simpler to do, right? But of course, some Shocker matchups, you do have to do that. Like, I saw some Abyss solos with him, and to do that, it's pretty much just spamming heavy attack. And it does work for sure, but it also is pretty boring just spamming heavy attack. But yeah, we drop the SP3, we go back in, drop an SP1 here, I believe. Or no, we just wait a bit. Yeah, there we go. Now we can drop it freely. And yeah, so far so good. Karnak, you know, it's Karnak, no big deal, but still, this tech lane is pretty good for Shocker, I feel like. We can drop it again, there we go. And now we're at pretty much close enough to max ramp. Not fully there yet, but 1 SP1 should do it, which it does. And now it's time to detonate it. And yeah, detonation, of course, is the best part about Shocker gameplay, because, you know, the other hits, they can do some damage for sure, but the heavy attack, it's like no competition really. So here I drop it, and I just noticed this pretty cool thing. Look at the gauntlets right here. They're about to glow, right? And then once they glow, he drops a heavy attack, and that damage output is just insane. But yeah, that animation is so clean. For like a very simple champion, he has some pretty great animations, especially the SP3. The SP3 with like the funny face that he does, I love it, man. I love Shocker. He's such a cool character. But now we have this Kitty Pryde matchup, and Kitty Pryde is like one of his best matchups for sure, because the no crit means that she doesn't get that much prowess, and also if she does get prowess, it gets removed by his base abilities. So yeah, he's pretty good for these prowess matchups. Pretty much like his best thing, in my opinion, at least. Besides, like, you know, the massive heavy attack, right? That, of course, is his best thing. But yeah, the prowess removal is also pretty dang good as well. And this matchup is just going perfectly. She is getting destroyed right here. Here I can go in, drop a combo into the Relic, and then watch this, man. It is so cool. But now we drop a combo into the SP2, and that ends the fight essentially, because the heavy attack should do all the work afterwards. That combo chain is so fun to do. Like, honestly, it's just such a great thing. And yeah, the heavy attack just does the rest as per usual. This man is so strong. But now we have this Mutant lane yet again. And honestly, Shocker, I feel like, was made for Mutant champions for sure. And his reach outside of Mutant fights might not be the strongest at a low rank, but as a 7-star rank 2 or rank 3 even, he can just take any fight, right? It's just like as simple as that. But for his lower counterparts, I feel like the Mutant matchups are his pretty much ceiling. So yeah, it's a bit weird, right? But I feel like Shocker is a very rank dependent character, which makes sense because he is a base attack dependent character, and like to increase your base attack, you need to rank up the champion, because base attack doesn't increase any other way, like the base attack dependent abilities, that is. So yeah, he is pretty rank dependent, and for like a 7-star rank 1, his ceiling is still pretty dang high for sure, but like as a rank 2 7-star, that's when things start to change, and it changes in a crazy way, man. He becomes a lot stronger, I feel like. But yeah, this Gambit matchup is pretty much wrapped up now. We can just detonate, charge the heavy attack, and yeah, it does some pretty nice damage here. Doesn't one-shot him, but was pretty much close enough, so yeah, it's fine. We go back in, drop a combo, and yeah, the fight is now over. not bad at all. And now we have this Squirrel Girl matchup, which is a very odd one, but you know what, he still does it just fine. Like, it's really hard for him to be bad for a champion. I'm trying to think about like what could make him bad for a matchup. I guess anything that punishes stun or like that has purify, because if he like feeds into purify, that could be pretty bad, like, you know, a Tuma. And I guess anyone with like stun immunity, right? Because the SP2, it's a very long stun. So like if someone's immune to it, that's kind of a bad idea. So like Hercules, for example, which is annoying, but it's whatever. But besides those two things, I feel like he just has a lot of good matchups. So yeah, Shocker, he's an odd one, but I feel like for Mutant champions, he is, you know, one of the best at countering them. But like for any general matchup, man, he has the damage output. He'll do it very, very well. But let's chop the heavy attack here. It won't one-shot for sure, but it should do some pretty nice damage, I hope. Yeah, it does a good chunk to say the least. Yeah, this matchup is not over just yet, but it kind of feels over at this point because she's down at 30% health. We're feeling good about this matchup. It's no big deal, man. But let's go back in after this. Drop a combo, drop an SP1, and now we have to build up to the SP2 yet again. So not bad at all. Like, these health pools aren't Shocker's most ideal ones, I feel like. His ideal health pools are like the 200 to 300,000 health matchups. So yeah, this is like punching well above his limit, and he's doing a pretty good job at it as well. So yeah, Shocker, his versatility is just really, really good, I feel like. But yeah, SP2 time, drop it, and this matchup is now over, essentially. Just a lot of overkill right here. Yeah, he did it with absolute ease. And now we have some Eternity of Pain matchups to close out the video. We have this Bishop matchup, and this Bishop is a very complex matchup for sure. So what he has is basically, you can't like do his main heavy charge because it gets complicated. This has stunning immunity, which basically means that whenever you trigger an immunity, he goes stun immune for about like a lot of seconds, right? But here's the thing, with Shocker's heavy attack charge, you have to charge up for a while, right? And this also has shock tether, and what that does is every like 8 seconds, if you don't make contact with the opponent, we both get shock debuffs, right? And Shocker is immune to shock. And when that immunity happens, he goes stun immune. So that means that our heavy attack, we can't like fully charge it up because he'll go stun immune, and then we can't like, you know, finish the charge. So yeah, it's pretty complicated. It's definitely very weird, but he can do this fight if you play around it. But it's just really complicated, and it is a bit goofy, but hey, he still does it pretty well. But now it's time for the SP2, and check out what I do here. It's kind of a smart thing. So I go for the hit, right, because it resets shock tether, so we get the full charge here. And check out the damage output. It is just so good. And yeah, this matchup is off to a great start, but now it's time to close it out. So here I can just drop the SP1, go back in, then drop the SP2 afterwards, and that should do it, I hope anyway, because yeah, if it doesn't, then we are in a bit of a pickle to say the least. But Bishop here, he's being friendly with the special attack. There I get the dodge, which is honestly pretty rare for me, so I'll take it. That's not too shabby at all. Here I dropped the SP2, he's at 20%, now like at 19%. So I charge up, and then this should do it, hopefully. But here we drop it, and it's over 185,000 damage. So yeah, it did the job for sure. But now we have this Havoc matchup to close it out. And this Havoc matchup is honestly a pretty fun one because Shocker is such a good Havoc counter as well. Now, with Havoc, you want like power drain for him, but also armor up. Now, Shocker has neither of those things. However, he does have access to 0 crits. And with 0 crits, if you play the matchup well, he becomes a great Havoc counter because with Havoc here, critting him is what gives him the plasma charges, besides it like, you know, growing over time. And with Shocker, you just don't get those extra plasma charges. So if you bait the SP2, you just consume his charges very often, and he doesn't gain them that often either. So yeah, Shocker is just so good for Havoc on pretty much any lane or like any node. I mean, not any node, because if the node counters Shocker, then yeah, he just can't do it. But still, he's one of the best Havoc counters out there in my opinion. So here I dropped the SP2, 100 charges, and let's check out the damage output here. So we charge up and it does a good amount of damage. It takes off like half its life, which is pretty amazing. But also with Shocker here, he does have the ability to not crit ever, and that is great for Havoc because Havoc reduces your crit damage rating by like 50%. It is pretty dang massive, but if you don't crit ever, then that ability just doesn't matter. So yeah, Shocker honestly is like a perfect Havoc counter, besides like not having an armor up or a power drain. But that kind of just shows that like you don't need the perfect counter for a fight to be a good counter at it, right? Because, you know, Shocker, no armor up, no power drain, is still super good for Havoc overall. So yeah, that's honestly pretty sweet. But now it's time to drop the SP1 again, and this matchup is about to be over after this nice combo here. We go back in, drop the combo, and now it's time to end the fight. And here we go. It's SP2 time into heavy attack, and we charge up, get that nice charge going that takes a decent amount of time, but then it's worth it because, yeah, that was just a massive detonation right there. But yeah, 7-star Shocker is just such a beast. He has a ton of utility that is great for the Mutant class, and just in general, really. He's great for pretty much any fight with his versatility and like his ease of use. He is just such a strong champion overall in my opinion, and honestly, I just love this champion a ton. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on 7-star Shocker. I think he is the best pull in the Gifted Guardians Crystal, so if you pulled him, massive congrats. And yes, about it from me.